What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Hitting the Field. I'm your host, Alex Funderburke. I'm back. I know I missed a week. I missed you guys. But we got a great show for you today. Kyle DeWitt, Tyler Caron. We're talking March Madness. We're talking the NBA. And it's going to be a great show. Hitting the Field starts now.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another week of Hitting the Field. I'm back. I took a brief hiatus last week. I'm your host, Alex Funderburke. And with me today is Kyle DeWitt and Tyler Caron. Kyle, how are you doing, bro?
Doing pretty well. I had a kind of long hiatus, but I'm back. So I'm ready to get going.
For sure. We're excited to have you back on. And Tyler, how are you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. Just still month of March coming to an end, but still just sports the entire month long, college basketball specifically, but I'm ready to go.
And yeah, Tyler is Houston's biggest hater, but they made it further than Texas did. So how are you feeling about that one?
Houston, I mean, I have been quiet about it all season long. They have not been a deserving team in my eyes. And when it comes to the bracket, they might have the easiest road. They've had the easiest road to the Elite Eight and possibly to the Final Four that we've ever seen in March Madness. They start with a 15 seed. They almost lose to a 10 seed in Rutgers. Probably should have lost that game, but they found a way to win, which I respect a lot. So I'm not going to discredit them for that, for finding a way to win the tournament. And then they take on an 11 seed in Syracuse, who they matched up pretty well with them with their defensive power compared to Syracuse's offensive power. And now they take on a number 12 seed, Oregon State, in the Elite Eight to get to the Final Four. So I don't know how else to say it other than this is the easiest road to the Final Four that any team has ever had, and it just had to be Houston making me look wrong.
I'm a little nervous because I remember 2 episodes ago, I promised Okelo he can host the show if Houston and Michigan are playing in the final. And it might happen. I don't think Michigan would beat Gonzaga, but it might happen. And that scares me. But I want to jump right into the Sweet 16, Kyle. What were your takeaways from the round as a whole?
For the round as a whole, I mean, I really saw that this year in college basketball is definitely a whole lot different than a whole lot of others. There wasn't a whole off season. There wasn't a whole, it was just mostly, for the most part, it's teams being a whole lot more even because there wasn't a lot of time in off season, a lot of recruiting. So you're seeing a lot of these lower seed teams making it farther in the tournament. But for the whole in the Elite Eight, we're still seeing a lot of the top dogs in there, like Baylor, Gonzaga, Michigan, even should have been Alabama, but no. I mean, Alabama still was one of the most surprising teams in college basketball this year. John Petty really took the country by storm, but then he didn't show up on the biggest stage whenever he needed to.
You know, I think that's my biggest takeaway too, is just how much parity there is. I mean, we kind of saw it last year before COVID cut the season short, where Dayton was going to be a number 1 seed. And that's not something you see often. So to see this kind of parity where you really don't know who's going to win, like that 12-2 Oregon State Houston matchup, Oregon State can win, and I wouldn't be that shocked. It's very cool to see parity in the sport. And you're seeing it in women's college basketball too, where it's not just UConn running it anymore. UConn hasn't won a national championship in 4 years. So to see parity just in college sports in general is a lot of fun. Tyler, what was your takeaways from the Sweet 16?
I'm going to kind of touch on this one Sweet 16 game from each region. So to start in the West, USC-Oregon game, I underestimated USC a lot. I said it last week how Andy Cass is one of my favorite college basketball analysts in the country, and he's been really high on USC all year, and I just haven't really seen it. I saw that last night versus Oregon. You know, obviously they have the Mobley brothers. That's no secret. And I wasn't always certain about their supporting cast. We saw last night Isaiah White, 22 points on 8 of 10 shooting. Taj Edey, who had a big shot earlier in the tournament. he had 20 points. And the Mobleys combined for 22 points, Evan with 10, Isaiah with 12. Evan still balled out. He still had 8 rebounds, 6 assists, so very balancing there. So I have to apologize to USC because I didn't think that they'd be able to make it this far and be this competitive. Going to the East, that UCLA-Alabama game was the best Sweet 16 game, and I don't think that many people will go against that. We saw runs on both sides. We saw the shot of the tournament, essentially, from Alex Reese with the only bucket of the game. UCLA, second team to make it to the Elite Eight as a first four playing game, with the first being VCU in 2011. And their offense is super well balanced. All of their starters were in double-digit scorings in that game. And that's something that is the formula to produce a run in the tournament, which UCLA is doing. Then it comes down to the Baylor-Villanova game. I thought was really interesting. And I'm high on Baylor. I did have them going to the Final Four, losing to Illinois. But with Baylor, we talked about all year, their trio, Jared Butler, Macio Teague, and Davion Mitchell, combined versus Villanova, they scored 28 points, which is the lowest combined they've scored all tournament. Usually they've been in the mid to high 40s combined, which they found a way to win, which I think is something Baylor does well. And they also played a diminished Villanova team. So I think those three, they need to get back to that high scoring in the 40s combined, or else this Arkansas team might come in led by Moses Moody and Jalen Tate and get the victory over Baylor. And then Arkansas over Oral Roberts, that was kind of it was so nice to see Oral Roberts do so well in the tournament. Max Adams he was one of the best players that we saw in the tournament. Definitely probably one of the biggest surprise players that we've seen. He had a shot at the end and it just didn't fall through. And then moving on with the Houston thing, I touched on it a little bit, but they played Syracuse very well. Like I said, Buddy Boeheim has been hooping this entire tournament. And as a whole, Syracuse has been hitting a lot of threes, shooting a lot of threes, shooting close to 50%. I believe it was 45% and 55% in their first 2 games. And Houston's defense, especially with Giroux, was able to shut down the Syracuse defense and Buddy Boeheim. And I think that does carry over to Oregon State, where Giroux will be on Ethan Thompson, who's also been hooping, and he's going to harass him and ultimately lead his team on defense to a Final Four appearance.
I agree with everything you said there, but I think Kyle and I were kind of talking about this pre-show. UCLA is a Cinderella, but it feels weird calling UCLA a Cinderella. They're an 11 seed, and I think most people in the country are kind of rooting for an 11-12 national championship game. I think that'd be awesome. But UCLA as a Cinderella is very strange to me because they are historically, they're a blue blood. They're one of those schools that, typically has a good basketball program. And yeah, for most of our lifetime, it hasn't been that outside of that Kevin Love year. But I think another big takeaway for me is Gonzaga's good. You kind of just get LeBron fatigue. You get Gonzaga fatigue because all season long they've just been murdering people. And now in the tournament, they're still murdering people. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. They're better than everyone else. I seriously don't see a team left that can beat Gonzaga. Kyle, do you?
I do. And they're actually my winner to win the national championship, and that's Baylor. Baylor has the number 1 defense in the country. I think that's the only team that could even possibly match up with Gonzaga and their 3-point, their balance of 3-point scoring and paint scoring. And that big trio in Baylor, that's the offense power that they need with that defense that they have. That's the only team left that I see that can beat Gonzaga. I know it sucks that everybody doesn't want to see a 1-versus-1 in the national championship game, but it's going to be Baylor Gonzaga in the national championship game, in my opinion. And I think Baylor finds a way to pull it out. It's going to be a very close game. Oh man, it's going to be a close game. That's going to be a really good game if it happens. But the game that I wanted to touch on, that Tyler touched on a little bit, was the Oral Roberts and Arkansas game. Did everyone forget that Oral Roberts was up by 12 points at one point in that game? In the second half, Arkansas has had probably the toughest road to the Elite Eight so far. They've been down by double digits in every single game so far they played this year. But Jalen Tate single-handedly brought Arkansas back in that game, even though he might not have hit the game-winning shot. But Abmas, he's 6 foot tall. Jalen Tate is 6'7". He literally just went to the paint and got any bucket that he wanted. And he was like, I think he scored maybe 8 straight points for Arkansas at one point. But I don't see Arkansas beating Baylor. They've been down by double digits in every single game so far this tournament. They're probably going to be down double digits again to Baylor. And with how good Baylor's defense is, I don't think Arkansas can make that good of a run in order to win that game.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a game where Arkansas can't afford to go down double digits. They're just not.
They can't.
This
they
is not a team.
Game for 2 halves.
Yeah,
this
is not a team you can come back against, and that kind of leads me into our Elite Eight preview. We can start with Arkansas Baylor. Tyler, what are your thoughts about this game?
I think Kyle hit it pretty well. I don't think Arkansas can muster that comeback that I think they will have to, because I do think that Baylor will get out on them early. I do think the trio of Butler, Teague, and Mitchell, that was their fluke in the tournament. And like I said, it's good that it came versus a diminished Villanova team without Colin Gillespie. And as unfortunate as that situation is, that's the reality. So I think that those three got their overall combined bad game out of the way. And now it's never smooth sailing in the tournament, not even for Houston necessarily, but that's about as close as it can be. But they've got that bad game out of the way. I think they get through Arkansas and make it into the Final Four.
That would be exciting for sure. I don't see Arkansas beating Baylor. Baylor is just too good. And I had Baylor losing this game, but to Ohio State, who disappointed seemingly everybody in the first round. But I want to jump into the first game that is tonight, and that's Oregon State Houston. Tyler, does Oregon State have any chance to continue this amazing Cinderella run?
I mean, there's always a chance, and I won't say that there isn't a chance. And as much as I would like to see it, it's just not going to happen. Houston, they have the offensive attacks and Grimes, Sasser, and Gorham. Giroux is still coming back from his injury, and he's kind of been playing through that, not scoring the ball as great as he kind of was that we saw throughout the season, but he's still rebounding, he's still passing, he's still locking up the best offensive player on the opposing squad every night. So, like I said, he already stopped Buddy Boeheim, Buddy Bucket, to one of the hottest players in the tournament through the Sweet 16. And Ethan Thompson is up there for Oregon State as well, who is another really hot hand. And Giroux is just going to be way, way, way too much for Thompson. And I don't see another player on Oregon State really stepping up in this situation to beat Houston.
Hey, it's weird. I'm in a weird spot here because I want to see the Cinderella story continue. And I also want to be right about Houston, because all year long I've been saying they're not as overrated as you think they are. No, I think Houston has too much. I mean, it would be really cool to see Oregon State continue, but I don't see it happening. Kyle, what about you?
No, I mean, Tyler hit it right on the head. I mean, Ethan Thompson has been hot the past couple of games, and Oregon State as a whole has been hot. But now they're going against the second best statistical defense in all of college basketball in Houston. I'm a big defensive guy, and I think defense wins championships, and we're about to see the top two statistical defenses play each other in the Final Four. I mean, Ethan Thompson's going to get locked. I mean, I think Oregon State probably shoots 35 to 40% from the field. I don't see any way possible that Oregon State wins this game, as much as I wanted it to happen. If there's any team so far that Houston has played that had the best chance to beat them, it was either Syracuse or Oregon State. In my opinion.
And Tyler, do you think that Oregon State could make this a defensive slugfest like they made that Loyola matchup and maybe pull an upset?
I do think so. I kind of mentioned the attack on offense that Houston does have. We have seen games throughout the season where they are a little bit sluggish. So a defensive team like Oregon State, ECU, I'd love to go back to that. Thank you for reminding me. But yeah, this Oregon State team can slow down Houston on offense, and it's just going to be a defensive slugfest. So like I said, I would never say there isn't a chance in any game in the tournament. We've seen way crazier things happen. But again, ultimately, I just don't see it happening.
For sure. And now I want to jump into my pick to win the national championship, Gonzaga against USC. I don't think any of us think USC has a real shot at this. It's kind of just like Gonzaga's like an NBA team right now, man. They're insane. Mm-hmm. Kyle, what are your thoughts about this game?
Man, I kind of want to pick USC to win this game, though. They are so hot. They are playing some of the best basketball in this tournament besides Gonzaga. If there's a second best team that's playing in sync and better than anyone else right now, it's USC, even though they're an 11 seed. And Evan Mobley is an absolute stud, and he's going to be a stud in the NBA. They're shooting well. They're playing really good defense. I think that USC makes this close, but no, Gonzaga wins. There's no better team in college basketball than Gonzaga, and it's gonna have to take a perfect game from somebody in order to beat them, and that would either be Baylor or USC that would give it to them. But it's not gonna be tonight.
Yeah, no, I don't think it'll be tomorrow night either. Tyler, what are your thoughts about this game?
Yeah, Kyle said one thing that I like a lot. USC has been shooting the lights out. Shot close to 60% last night against Oregon, while also limiting their three-point shooting to 23%. Could we see that come through against an elite shooter like Corey Kispert of Gonzaga? The answer is no. There is a chance, but the answer overall is no. However, I do think that it will be closer than what the spread might say. All season long, I've been pretty consistent about liking the Gonzaga spread, whether it was 30 or 16 or whatever it was. I like the Gonzaga spread. This is a spread I don't like just based off of how hot USC is. But ultimately, Gonzaga does come out to win the game. I tweeted last night, right in the midst of all the Alabama UCLA madness, I said, it's crazy that this is awesome what's going on right now, but it still doesn't even matter because the Gonzaga Bulldogs are still a team that is in the tournament, and I still see that to hold true all the way to the championship.
Yeah, they're insane. And like I've been saying for the most part of this tournament, if Gonzaga doesn't get it done this year, they're never going to win one. Like it has to be this team. This team is just head and shoulders just above everyone else. But I want to talk about the last game of the Elite Eight, UCLA, Michigan. There is a slight chance we get USC UCLA in the Final Four, which would be awesome. But I don't see that happening. Tyler, can UCLA get this done? Can they continue their Cinderella run?
I don't think so. I've been all season long, I've kind of had it as Gonzaga is the elite number one, kind of in their own little section, their own tier. Baylor got very close to getting there. However, I think that their pause due to COVID kind of got them into the same spot as Michigan. I see those as two very well-matched teams, and I'd put them both in a tier 2 and then everyone else in their own little tiers. But there's a huge gap between that tier 1 and tier 2 and everyone else. And like I said, Michigan is in that tier 2. The one part of my bracket that was correct was that Michigan and FSU were going to face off in this game. And I picked FSU just to have, I didn't think Michigan was going to be able to pull it off. And Michigan handled FSU. There wasn't a second of that game that it wasn't Michigan's game in my eyes. So I don't think so. As hot as UCLA is, that they played an OT game last night. They're going to have to play a really good Michigan team tomorrow. And it gets to a point where, again, the Cinderella that is UCLA, they're running out of gas here. You know, maybe if they played another high seed, if that's how the bracket would have worked out, they could have maybe advanced past the Elite Eight into the Final Four, but like they're out of gas, I think. You know, Johnny Juzang has played really well. Tiger Campbell has played really well. Their big man came alive last night. I'm blanking on what his name is, which I love to see late in the game, the post players taking over. And I think that was all they had. They put everything into that Alabama game. And I think another reason why they squeaked by that game was because Alabama shot 11 for 25 from the free throw line. So you make half of those free throws and Alabama comes out on top. So I think they just barely squeaked by, and I don't think that they can do that versus Michigan.
And for sure, I think another good point about UCLA is they've played one more game than everyone else. And that one game also went to overtime. So they played 2 overtime games and one more game than everyone else left. They got to be getting tired. Like, this is a lot of basketball to be played in a short amount of time. I don't see how they beat Michigan. I would love to see it, but I just don't see it happening. Kyle, what say you?
This is the most likely upset of any of the Elite Eight games. But I mean, Michigan is a really good basketball team. And just because, like, I want to pick UCLA to win this game, but just because they've played one more game than everyone else and 2 overtime games, especially last night, man, they're going to be winning at halftime. I still think UCLA will be winning at halftime, but then they're going to run out of gas right as soon as the second half starts and Michigan's going to take over. I think that's going to be my takeaway. That's what I'm going to say different than everyone else.
For sure. And I like that. It's kind of scary because we all have the lower seeds winning. Like we have the 2, 1, and 1 and 1 winning. So there's bound to be an upset. I think so Kyle, you say UCLA is the most likely upset. Tyler,
Yes.
What do you think is the most likely upset out of the Elite Eight?
Houston's going to beat Oregon State. Baylor, Arkansas, I think that's another decent chance, and again, that's not a crazy upset. That's a 1-3, but I don't see it getting done. And Gonzaga is Gonzaga. They're getting through. So I guess I'd have to agree, and I agree as well what Kyle said about UCLA being up at half, and we've seen that all tournament how the lower seed or the higher seed has gotten hot early, and especially with how hot UCLA is, and that top seed kind of came out a little stagnant. But that lower seed will play a good 35 minutes of basketball, and then that top seed just takes over. So I could see that happening as well, for sure.
Adjustments. That's the big thing that all these top seeds have been doing well all tournament, is that they'll be playing in very close games and then halftime adjustments, and then they end up taking over. So
for sure,
probably been a big theme so far this tournament.
For sure. And so I think the most likely upset is also UCLA. They've just been playing hot. They've played one more game than everyone else, and that worries me. I don't think any upset will happen here, but if there is one, I do think it's UCLA. One last question for the college basketball portion of the show. Who's going to win the national title, Tyler?
Gonzaga. No fight. Gonzaga, Baylor, Natty, but Gonzaga comes out on top.
For sure. And Kyle, Gonzaga? Baylor. I'm not mad at it. I think I'm
I think I'm one of the only people in the world that are picking Baylor to win this game, even though they are the clear-cut second best team in the country.
It's just
they are the only team that I can see that can match up with Gonzaga, and with how good their defense is, they'll make it a defensive slugfest, and they'll find a way to pull it out late.
For sure. And all season long, I've been saying the only team that can compete with Gonzaga is Baylor. And then you watch Gonzaga, and it's like even Baylor can't compete with them. Like Tyler's saying, it's just tiers, and they're in that second tier, and Gonzaga's way up here. It's like this team is just special, man. So it'd be cool seeing the first undefeated since Indiana did it in '65.
Yeah.
I just don't see anybody.
Do you think that this
Gonzaga.
Is the best team since the Anthony Davis Kentucky team?
I have a hot take. I think this Gonzaga team is better.
Oh, okay.
I do. I know that's like an extremely hot take, but I do.
That team.
Their NBA talent might not translate the way that Kentucky team did, but this Gonzaga team's like just too good for college basketball. Tyler, do you think this is the best team since then, or better than?
I can't say better than just I've been high on Gonzaga all year, and it's, there are the arguments of strength of schedule, and I'd say it doesn't matter. Gonzaga is still that team, but when it comes to that 2012 Kentucky team versus this Gonzaga team, that's where I think strength of schedule comes into play, and I'm taking that Kentucky team over the Gonzaga team. But it could just be the best team. As a Carolina guy, I might argue that senior year for Bryce Johnson and Marcus Page with Joel Berry and Justin Jackson as juniors when they lost on a heartbreaker to Villanova in the Natty. That team might be able to compete. So one of those two teams in my eyes.
I like this conversation. I'm going to stick here for a minute. I think that the Duke team that last won the national title with Tyus Jones and all them, I think that was a really good team. A lot of people sleep on. But
even the Duke team with Zion and RJ Barrett.
That was even an amazing team there. That Kentucky team that was undefeated and lost to Wichita State. That was another good team. But to your strength of schedule point, I think it's hard to argue it for the 2012 Kentucky team, because if I'm remembering correctly, they were really the only team that was really good in the SEC that year. I could be wrong, and I could just be forgetting somebody. But I think their strength of schedule is going to be similar because the SEC typically is not strong. It's normally just really Kentucky and Florida sometimes. But this Gonzaga team is special. I do think if they're not better than, they're in that conversation. And just to be in that conversation is something special, especially coming out west in the West Coast Conference, which is not a conference that gets a lot of love. They're normally a one bid league. But that'll wrap it up for college basketball. We're gonna take a short break. We're gonna come back and we're gonna talk NBA basketball. Stick with us.
Here's the story of a show creator who was gearing up to form a bigger crew. One's a California guy,
a god of graphics.
One hosted Girls on Deck.
It's a story of a 4-year nightmare, which is finally coming to an end, thank God.
And the new kid, a Packers lover.
Tampa forever. So then one day all these people work together to face a year unlike one that's ever been. And his group rebranded in Orlando. That's the way we all became HTFN. 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 That's the way we became HTFN.
That's blasphemy!
What's up, guys? Welcome back. Kyle and Tyler are still with me. And we just had the NBA trade deadline, so we're going to jump right into it. Kyle, I want to start with your team. They had 3 good players coming into the trade deadline, and they traded all 3 good players. The Magic traded Vucevic to Chicago, Aaron Gordon to Denver, and Fournier to Boston. As a Magic fan, Kyle, what are your initial thoughts on this?
The initial thoughts was that the first trade done of the day was the Vucevic trade. And I'm like, oh no, we are going to have an absolute fire sale for trading away our 2-time All-Star. I agree with the Aaron Gordon trade because he wanted out of there. The Evan Fournier trade, I agreed with because I didn't want to pay him the money that he was going to ask. But Vucevic, that's one of the perfect people that you can use to like start center building around a rebuilding team. We were 15-29 with him. Now, if we can get really good draft picks and also have Vucevic still, we could probably build. But we need to keep Vucevic. Wendell Carter Jr. is not the answer. I'm sorry. He has potential. He's young. We got 2 first-round picks. But with Vucevic and Zach LaVine, those Bulls teams are going to be playoff teams. So those picks aren't going to mean jack squat. So I have no reason to believe why we traded Vucevic. Should not have happened. But that Fournier deal was probably the best deal that we did all day.
Yeah, no, that's what kind of shocked me is the return for Vucevic wasn't impressive. I like the return for Aaron Gordon. I like the return for Fournier. But your best player, your all-star, the guy who's been your best player since Dwight left, why get rid of him? Why? He's not terribly old yet. I think he's 29 or 30. Like, what are you doing? Tyler, what were your thoughts on what the Magic did?
Yeah, so the Magic kind of hit the red button a little bit, excuse me, and traded everyone out, got everyone out. So I don't think that there is any big loser in this. I guess the Magic losing Vucevic would be the big loser, but I still think the Magic are okay. So we mentioned the 15-29 record. We've seen some really shady Magic starting 5 lineups this year. Guys that that were good or a couple of years ago that we kind of forgot about, and young guys that people have never heard of. We've seen some really weird starting 5s for the Magic. So I don't think they get any significantly worse. Bringing in RJ Hampton, Gary Harris, Otto Porter, Wendell Carter, and then a couple first rounds and a couple seconds. I don't think it hurts them tremendously because I like Vucevic. He is an all-star. He easily was the best player on the Magic. And he was leading them to a 15-29 record. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily on him. The supporting cast was nothing.
The injuries also were very bad.
Right. Correct. And so that's why I think the Magic kind of have set themselves up for the future. They still have Cole Anthony, Jonathan Isaac. We are just waiting for that season that J.I. is healthy and can just go out there and ball out because he can hoop. But they're still, like I said, they're setting themselves up for the future. Got a lot of younger players coming in RJ Hampton, Wendell Carter. I think Wendell Carter, he's battled injuries. I think he can be not a dominant center, maybe not even a consistent all-star, but can be an all-star down the line. And then, Vooch to the Bulls. Now they have the trio of LaVine, Vucevic, and Markkanen. I'm so happy for Zach LaVine because that man has needed help, and he finally has a little bit. Hopefully Markkanen can stay away from the injury bug like he's been prone to, and they can be a playoff team. And then, do you want me to go into the Celtics now, Alex, or we want to wait?
Go for it. The Celtics are going to be my next topic. So the Celtics made their moves. You're a Celtics fan. What do you think about your Celtics right now?
I love it. I do. Jeff Teague, I enjoyed him being there. I still think that they were kind of competing. Two big winners on the Celtics are Robert Williams and Peyton Pritchard. Pritchard has been a great surprise for the Celtics. He was, a very, very talented Pac-12 Oregon basketball player. And I just didn't see him translating as well as he has to the NBA. And so he's that for sure locked in backup point guard. Robert Williams has been in the shadow of Daniel Tice, who is now out. I've been high on Robert Williams since his days at Texas A&M. I think that he should have been our starter for the last couple of seasons when we've been making playoff runs. And now Tice is out. Robert Williams is in. We've won our last 2 games with him starting. Bring in Mo Wagner, who, sure, why not? Another guy to come off the bench and get some buckets. And Fournier, I don't think Celtics re-sign him. He wants too much. He's not worth it. However, I think that bringing him in this season is exactly what the Celtics, who are struggling around 500, 7th seed in the East, that's something that they need to really push them over the top in a sense, or get them better than what they were. That wing score off of the bench that I think he'll do a really good job of. And for 2 second-round picks, I'm fine with that. Or some help this season. Right now, let's try to compete in an Eastern Conference that is even more loaded now than it was 2 days ago. But so that's kind of my take on the Celtics.
Yeah, no, the Celtics are a weird team for me, just being a Knicks fan. Like, I just genuinely hate Boston. But the Celtics are interesting because they're the 7th seed right now. They're sitting at 500. They should be a lot better than they are. And I think I like Robert Williams too. I don't think Tice was the guy there. Evan Fournier, I like it. They should be a lot better than 500 now. Like, this is their time. I don't think they're gonna get into the top 3 of the East. But 4 or 5 is definitely not out of the question. Kyle, what are your thoughts on the Celtics right now?
My thoughts on the Celtics is that they didn't do what they needed to in the trade deadline. I think that they already had a really good wing. They had Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and they went out and traded for Evan Fournier. I mean, now you have the right guy starting at their center, but you bring in Mo Wagner to come off the bench. You needed big man help. That's what the Celtics have been missing besides some perimeter defense, besides of Jaylen Brown. And they also needed a better backup point guard than Peyton Pritchard. I love Peyton Pritchard. I think he's going to be great one day. But for a championship level team, as him as a backup point guard right now is not the answer. So the real answers that they needed to answer were big man and backup point guard. And what did they do? They get another wing. They already have Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. They already have a lot of wings, and it's just going to create a log jam inside of the wings. And I see why they got Evan Fournier, but then I don't, if that makes any sense. Like, I was like, oh, yeah, you get some buckets off the bench, but you're going to take away minutes from Jaylen Brown. You're going to take away minutes from Jason Tatum just to get a couple buckets off the bench. Evan Fournier is a walking bucket, but I'd much rather have Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum on the floor, and he's just going to take minutes away from them.
For sure. Yeah, no, I definitely get that. It's a smart trade, but it's not. And I'm with you there. You sold me. I want to take a second to brag about my Knicks here for a minute. They didn't do anything dumb. They got a draft pick. They traded Austin Rivers, who hasn't been playing. They cut the 2 people they got back, and they got draft capital. Like, we didn't do anything dumb. Like, let's go. Like, we're the 4 seed right now. We're 2 games over 500. This is fun. I'm having a lot of fun right now with the Knicks. They play the Heat tonight. Hopefully they get a win. They'll move 3 games above 500. But To me, that's the best move. Was the Knicks not doing anything dumb? But Kyle, what do you think was the best move made this trade deadline?
I think the best move made was the Denver Nuggets trading for Aaron Gordon. They already had a super stellar backcourt, and they traded away R.J. Hampton and Gary Harris. Gary Harris is hurt, and they had R.J. Hampton, who was third-string point guard. And he wasn't even playing. Monte Morris is even getting minutes over him. And you traded them and a first-round pick in 2025 that's protected to get Aaron Gordon, who was the piece that the Denver Nuggets have been missing, a defensive wing who can get backdoor cuts to dunks. We saw it last night what Aaron Gordon was doing. Jokic was having a field day passing to Aaron Gordon on backdoor cuts and lobs. That Denver Nuggets team is going to be very, very scary with Aaron Gordon in the lineup. And I am just the way you can now see that Aaron Gordon wants to play basketball again. He wanted out of Orlando. He was not playing the way he wanted to. He was averaging, I think, 13, 14 points a game when he was actually in the lineup. And then last night he goes out and scores, I think, 16 points and like 70% field goal shooting. It's making threes. It's like, oh my gosh, man. I wish Orlando could have put people around Aaron Gordon. Like, he's not the centerpiece of a franchise, obviously. But I just wish that Orlando would have done a better job putting people around him. But this also gives a good opportunity for people in Orlando now that are young to develop, like Chuma Okeke. Chuma Okeke played great last night. I was so happy with Chuma Okeke's performance last night against the Lakers. How many points did he have? I need to see in my notes exactly. He scored 14 points and he shot 50% from the 3-point line. And then he scored 20 points 2 nights ago. Like, Chuma Okeke is balling, and he'll probably end up being the starting 4 moving forward for next year with Jonathan Isaac at the 3. And I mean, I'm done talking about the Magic, but Denver Nuggets trade for Aaron Gordon, best trade at the trade deadline. I think that it propels the Nuggets to be a top 3 seed in the West, especially with all the injuries to the Lakers.
That'd be exciting. This Nuggets team is definitely exciting, and that pains me because Okelo has something to be happy about.
I know.
But Tyler, what was the best move this trade deadline?
So mine was originally the Nuggets as well. I've been really high on Aaron Gordon as a living in Orlando the last couple of years and growing up in Florida. So I've always rooted for the Magic. If they lose, well. If they win, well. So it's kind of a secondary team just to watch when the Celtics aren't on. So I'll go a different direction. And I don't know if it was genius by Miami or just Houston they got a problem. There's no other way to say it. Getting Oladipo, and you don't give up Tyler Hero. You don't give up Duncan Robinson. You keep Precious Achiuwa, who is showing signs of being a solid player a solid NBA player, and in years to come. They keep their young talent. They keep their current talent, and they give up Avery Bradley, Kelly Olynyk, in a trade swap. So getting Oladipo, I think that's like a big piece there. And so like I'll go with the Heat on this one. In Houston, I just don't know what they're doing. They essentially have nothing now for that Harden trade. Nothing. So
I don't understand what the Rockets are doing. You just traded your arguably your best player. It's either him or John Wall for a bag of chips, basically.
For a bag of
you say, here, take Victor Oladipo, give us a snack-sized bag of Lay's. Like, that's what they just did. I don't get it. That was my best move as well, just because they got Victor Oladipo for nothing. Like, nothing. It made no sense to me. But
do you want to know the Rockets' standpoint on that trade?
Go for it.
Victor Oladipo is an expiring contract. Houston Rockets and everyone else in the world knew that Victor Oladipo is definitely not going to re-sign there in the offseason. So they're like, man, we really got to trade him away now, since we are in full-on rebuild mode, to at least get something back, if that makes any sense. The players that they got were horrible. Bag of chips. Avery Bradley, good 5 years ago, and he had one decent year. Kelly Olynyk, come on, dude. Kelly Olynyk is absolute. He's horrible. We all know he's horrible. Like, he is a rotational big man, maybe 15 minutes a game. Maybe he'll get you a 3-pointer, but he can't even grab a rebound, and he's 7 foot tall. Kelly Olynyk is so bad, but that's the Rockets' mindset of the trade. We got to get something back, man, but they could have at least got Duncan Robinson for him. They could have at least.
Robinson.
You could have ended up with Karis LeVert in the Harden trade, and you don't.
Yes, and they still trade him away.
It's just I don't know. It doesn't make sense what the Rockets are doing. Former Hitting the Field member Jeremy Brenner, I'm sure you're going through it, bro. Your Rockets are a dumpster fire. Which is weird to say because normally it's my Knicks doing dumb things, and now it's not, and that makes me happy.
I guess the Rockets just want John Wall. I guess the Rockets just don't want John Wall to succeed.
Bro, like if I'm John Wall, I'm asking for a buyout right now.
Yep.
Like, why would I want to be on the Rockets?
Brooklyn probably has a spot. Brooklyn probably has a spot for John Wall.
That leads me to my next topic is the Nets. Like the Nets still have an open roster spot. Like, who else are they going to sign? Next thing you know, hey, Thanos. Thanos is going to Brooklyn. I'm calling it now. So if you haven't seen it, they signed LaMarcus Aldridge. They have Blake Griffin now. They have, if you know an NBA player, chances are they're on the Brooklyn Nets right now. Tyler, what are your thoughts about the Brooklyn Nets?
Play is going to play. I mean, they're doing it. I think Stephen A hit it pretty well. And just like you did, Stephen A's initial reaction was, this isn't fun. You know, Alex, we talk a lot about how I like to have fun. You like to have fun. We like teams to have fun. Hopefully Brooklyn's having fun, but nobody else is.
No.
I mean, now it's just going to be, what is this with KD just being on teams that people hate? I think KD is the answer to this. I can't explain it. It's good for LaMarcus Aldridge. I guess he hasn't been happy in his situation in San Antonio in quite some time. He's finally out, but the only other thing that I could see is, right, like I said, John Wall getting a buyout. I don't know what the cap space is like in Brooklyn. I can't imagine that they could do it, but get John Wall to Brooklyn. Get Zach LaVine to Brooklyn. Get Bradley Beal to Brooklyn. Get guys that need help and aren't happy in their current situation to Brooklyn at this point.
Man, this was my original thought when they got LaMarcus Aldridge. It's all this to just beat Emmanuel quickly. Like, the Knicks are just too good, you know? But Kyle, what are your thoughts on the Nets?
My thoughts on it is that, like, if this team was assembled 5 years ago, they probably would have won 82-0. But
probably
they would have won 82-0. But LaMarcus Aldridge is 36 years old or 35 years old. Blake Griffin's getting up there in age too, and his injuries have not helped him at all. I mean, they're big names. Don't get me wrong, but I still think this Brooklyn Nets team is beatable. They're not. I mean,
that's my hot take. Is when they signed LaMarcus Aldridge, I tweeted, "This Brooklyn Nets team will not make it to the finals. Book it."
They're not. I mean, even on their bench, they don't have a lot of guard. They don't have a lot of guard depth on the bench. Yeah, they still have Spencer Dinwiddie, but Spencer Dinwiddie, especially after his injuries, is still not playing as well as he used to. And they have a logjam in the front court. They have Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, and they have Jeff Green. Like, who are you gonna play? Who are you gonna play the shooting guard? Are you gonna play three-part last name dude? I forgot his last name.
Yeah, something like that.
Landry Shamet, like, they're nothing.
Yeah.
They're nothing either. They're a bunch
right
of
now. Their backup point guard is Chris Chiozza from Florida.
Yeah, like he was great in Florida. Don't get me wrong, but he's 5'11", 6 foot tall. No, not athletic at all. So I mean,
like, cool. You have every name under the sun, but like, there's only one ball. Like, I think this team's gonna have chemistry problems. Like, I really do. There's too many big names on this team. Like, there's no way everyone's going to be happy with the minutes they're getting, with the scoring they're getting. Like, yeah, they have the talent to just blow everyone out, but they're not going to play defense.
I was about to say, who on that team knows how to play defense? Maybe like, Kevin Durant. Maybe
KD can play defense. That's the only person.
DeAndre Jordan, maybe.
Like, they're going to score 150 points a game, but they might be giving up 151.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's not fun that they're signing literally everybody. Like, I'm shocked Drummond didn't somehow end up on the Nets too. He went to the Lakers, but like, what are you doing? Like, stop signing everybody. It's not fun. Like, I don't know if this is just me being a Nets hater because I'm a Knicks fan or what, but like, no one cares about the Nets. Like, I've said this before, they can go 82-0, win 10 straight championships, and no one in New York will care about them. New York is still and always will be a Knicks town. But like, what? You're only making yourself more hateable. And I didn't understand the Kevin Durant hate when he was in Golden State. now I get it. I see it. I see it now. My third eye is opened, you know, like I get why people hate Kevin Durant. I don't get it, but I
Kevin
don't see
Durant might
them
go to Orlando next because he's just Mickey Mouse. He's Mickey Mouse in championships at this point, man.
for real. And it's like, bro, you're good enough alone to where you could do this by yourself. You don't need all this help.
Well, that's where how much of this is on Kevin Durant. And that's kind of my question, because it's been very open about LeBron building teams. That's one thing. He's fuming about all of this right now. He's happy he got Drummond, but that's his role. I take the has-beens and give them a ring. You know, I do this. So I'm really curious how much of a recruiter Kevin Durant in reality is. We know he had a part in James Harden. You know, when it comes to these other guys, I am very curious what Kevin Durant's part in it all is.
Yeah, like I know when he went to Golden State, it was Draymond Green that recruited him. And then it was Kyrie that kind of got him to Brooklyn too, because they're both considering the Knicks or the Nets. Like KD, I don't know. Like Kevin Durant does not need this help. At his best, he's the second best player in the league. Like he's one of the best players we've ever seen. You don't need all this help. I don't understand it. Kyle, what are your thoughts on KD?
At least on Brooklyn, it's a bunch of people that really haven't won a championship. Yeah, Kyrie won a championship, but like he made that game-winning shot. No, but that's LeBron's championship. Like we all like Kyrie was the second best player on that team. He did score 23 points a game in that finals, but like if Kyrie can win this championship, then I'll consider him like a legitimate superstar. Like he's got the best handles in the league, everything like that. But back to the main point. Kevin Durant went to a team that went 73-9, and they had already won one or two championships before that. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. But on this team, he's the leader. He's the one that's won a championship. All these other has-beens have been really good all their careers, but have never won a championship. So maybe he's not. I mean, he is Mickey Mousing this championship, but maybe not as much as people think, because these are all people that don't know how to win. Besides Kyrie, somewhat. James Harden don't know how to win in the playoffs. LaMarcus Aldridge hasn't done anything all his career in the playoffs. Blake Griffin, I mean, he's never made it past the second round of the playoffs. We all know those Clippers teams should have won championships, but they didn't. It's people that haven't really won championships, and Kevin Durant has to not single-handedly, but single-handedly lead this team to a championship because he's done it before. He knows how to do it. All these other guys don't.
You know, that's a fair point that I think a lot of people are forgetting about is outside of KD and Kyrie, no one's won on this team. Like KD was a killer in those finals. Kyrie was a killer in game 7. But outside that, like James Harden is notoriously is a choke artist come playoff time. Same with Blake Griffin and those Clippers teams. Like it's not there. Like this kind of leads me into the next topic of who's best positioned to win it all. I don't think it's Brooklyn. I kind of like the Clippers now. I like that Rajon Rondo trade. I do think that they're up there. Obviously, I still got to go with the Lakers, but I'm not mad at someone saying, you know what? No, I think the Clippers are. Kyle, who right now is best positioned to win the chip?
You know, they have their best two stars injured, LeBron and AD. They're probably going to be a 6 or 7 seed in the West, and they're still going to be the best team, and they're not going to have to play a first seed Clippers team or a first seed Jazz team in the first round. They're going to have to see them in the conference finals, and they're going to have the easiest path to the conference finals and possibly the finals. The Lakers are setting themselves up by getting Andre Drummond and injuring themselves, if that makes any sense. And then also
that makes perfect sense.
I like the Nuggets too. I like them over the Clippers as of right now, actually. Jokic is about to win an MVP. Jokic is about to win an MVP yet again due to default because of injury. But
Jokic has been MVP even before Bron and AD got hurt. Like Jokic has been balling all season. If he doesn't win MVP, there's something wrong. Like it's Jokic. I know people are pushing for Harden right now. It's not Harden. No. It's Jokic. It has to be. Tyler, who's best positioned to win it all?
I still do have the Lakers, and to the same points that you and Kyle just made. And my next one after that, and especially after the Aaron Gordon trade, is Denver. They've been the pieces they've had. I think they've been kind of one piece away or one basket away, you know. And I think that Aaron Gordon coming in, playing good minutes and playing good basketball is going to really help them get through the Western Conference. And I mean, Utah and Phoenix are 1 and 2 in the conference right now. You know, does that hold true? Does that mean they're the best 2 teams in the conference come playoff time? Absolutely not. You know, they've got guys that haven't been there, haven't won in the playoffs, and you're going to have to face LeBron, who is LeBron, for crying out loud. So I still think that the Lakers, they're still my champions, I think. And I think bringing in Drummond is a great move for them. And so they're going to be a lower seed, and they're still going to breeze through to that conference finals. Depending on how it plays out, I think that the Clippers and the Lakers will meet. And then going over to the East, it's just, let's go with the Knicks. I don't know. I'll go with my Celtics to make a run, just to be a little bit interested. Like I said, I'm big on bringing in Fournier to bring in a solid scoring and play off the bench. So we don't have to have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum out there for 40 plus minutes every single night. And so I think the Celtics are kind of being forgotten about a little bit in the East based off of their performance so far and their subpar play. And then also all the attention that's been drawn to Brooklyn. So I think that the Celtics also could make a late run in the playoffs.
You guys are also forgetting that the Philadelphia 76ers exist in the East. Joel Embiid will be back before playoff time. And that team without Joel Embiid has won 8 out of the last 9 games. That team is solid.
Kyle, does Ben Simmons shoot the ball yet?
Yeah. No.
Then don't talk.
He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to.
I knew you were going there,
shooters around him that can shoot. I don't
care. Does Ben Simmons shoot the ball? If the answer is no, then I don't care about the Sixers.
Well, then who? All right, then who makes it to the finals out of the East? Then the Heat.
Out of the East, I take the Celtics. I take the Heat. I take the Bucks. I take the Nets over Philly.
No. Can Giannis shoot the ball yet?
No, but I'm.
All right, then don't give me the Bucks in the finals then.
But look, that team is, I think, better than Philly.
No, that Bucks team is definitely not better than the Philly.
Because look, in the playoffs, when Ben Simmons has the ball, just give him all the space he wants and just play the paint. Like I don't know. Ben Simmons. I don't understand the hype. I don't
understand the hype about Ben Simmons either. But this is the best team around Ben Simmons his whole career.
That's fair. This is the best team that has been around him. But I don't see them getting out of the East. I think the Heat are going to be really good now they've got Oladipo. I think Milwaukee's going to make a run. I think Boston can make a run. Shoot, my Knicks are the 4 seed right now. Like, they're going to get to the second round. They're beating Charlotte. Like,
oh, yes, for sure. Without LaMelo, come on.
Exactly. Like, I'm not saying the Knicks are going to the finals, but they play defense that can make it tough for people. Like, I'm not sold on the Sixers. I'm not. I'm sorry. But Tyler, any closing thoughts for you before we wrap this up?
Something that kind of got missed in all the talks. I want to touch on OKC really, really quick, and just the fact that they have, I believe it was, 34 picks over the next, I think it was 8 years. 17
Sam Presti for president. Is that what we're saying?
He is the winner of the NBA this season, regardless of what happens. Sam Presti, that's absurd. That is building for the future right there. And he's still got this guy named Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's pretty good.
He's really good at basketball.
Really good at basketball.
Yeah. So,
really
wow. Talk about a team that can rebuild around their pieces. And still, I mean, it's not, they're 19 and 26. They're not top 8 in the Western Conference. But, they could still play some pretty solid basketball. And they have 34 picks in the next 7 or 8 years. So
I love that they just told Al Horford, just like, yo, don't come. We'll pay you.
Just stay home.
We'll pay you, but stay home. We'll trade you in the offseason, but stay home. We don't need you. Now the Thunder are crazy, bro. Like, it's gonna be them and
with those draft picks, though, that's the question. Because you have 34 draft picks. That's way too many picks for one team to have. Obviously, you're gonna trade them for other pieces, but it's a matter of who Sam Presti can get with those draft picks. That's gonna be the question. Which is always the question for teams that have a crap ton of draft picks. The Celtics did good whenever they had a crap ton of draft picks from Brooklyn.
Yep.
But what can OKC do? This is the most picks I think that any team's ever had in 6 years. I can't tell you.
It's them and New Orleans have a ton of picks, and it's going to be fun to see. Like, it's going to feel like, with the first pick of the draft, the Thunder select. With the second pick of the draft, the Pelicans select. With the third pick of the draft, the Thunder's like, it's going to be Thunder and Pelicans for like the next 7 years in the draft. And it's kind of boring, but it's like really exciting because this doesn't happen often. Normally teams are trading players, and now Sam Presti what's the GM in New Orleans? Griffin. They're like draft capital. That's what everyone wants out in the NBA, and it's really exciting to see. Tyler, I'm glad you brought that up because I totally forgot about it. Kyle, any closing thoughts from you?
Hot take, the Orlando Magic will have the first overall pick in next year's draft and draft Cade Cunningham some way, somehow. They might not get in the lottery, but they'll use those 2 Bulls picks to trade up from 3 to 1. Or from 4 to 1.
Okay. I'm not mad at it. I'm looking at the standings right now. Memphis and Golden State knock Dallas out of the playoffs so the Knicks can have a lottery pick. Thank you.
I like that.
That's my closing thoughts on the NBA is Dallas, please miss the playoffs because I want the Knicks to have a lottery pick. And who knows? They might get Cade. They might somehow end up with the first pick.
They're the Knicks. They got
the Knicks.
That was it.
Hey, things are going good now for the Knicks. This is fun. But I want to thank you guys for joining me. We had a great show. Stay tuned for the rant. And yeah, thanks for watching.
I'm in charge of the meeting this week. So you know what we're going to talk about? Basketball. The second thing we're going to talk about this week is basketball. Okay? And the third and last thing we're going to talk about is basketball. Yeah. God. Yeah. It's ridiculous. I want to quit. Can I quit? Take that. Look at the screen. What are we talking about this week? Basketball.
What's up, everyone? I want to thank everyone for joining me on the show today. Tyler, Kyle, we had a great episode, great discussion, a lot of little rants we had in there. It's kind of random, but it was a lot of fun. And we have a great lineup of shows for the rest of the week. But for my rant this week, Jeremy, my good friend, I'm sorry, but it's your Houston Rockets. What are y'all doing? I mean, you're trading everyone for bags of chips. You're not getting good draft pick compensation. I mean, you're just not building to the future. I feel bad for John Wall because he's stuck there. If I'm John Wall, I'm asking for a buyout. I want to get as far away from Houston as I possibly can. You could have ended up with Karis LeVert, but instead you end up with Victor Oladipo, who you then trade. There's nothing left. You got nothing for James Harden. Like, what? I don't get it. You're trading your future. Like, you had a good core there. And yeah, James Harden was frustrated and you had to get rid of him. So I'm not mad at you trading James Harden. But then for you to turn around, you could have ended up with Jared Allen. You could have ended up with Karis LeVert. But instead you don't. You get Victor Oladipo and now you ship Victor Oladipo off. It just does not make sense. You had a 20-game losing streak. Like, you guys are acting like the Knicks. You want to be the Knicks so bad. But you're the Rock. Like, I expect better from the Rockets. I don't know. It's a weird time to be in Houston for sure. It's sad. I'm not a Rockets fan, but if I am a Rockets fan, I'm really sad right now. I just don't. I'm like at a loss for words right now because I don't know how to describe what's going on in Houston. It just doesn't make sense. I do better, Houston. That's my rant. All right, cool. I'll talk to you guys next week on Monday for another great episode of Hitting the Field. I'm sure we'll be talking about the Final Four. But I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated chance, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap.